Alright everybody, we're now in part 3, and if you've made it this far then then well done, because I have waffled on quite a lot about Roy in this video. But we're now going to be continuing with part 3 of our Roy Orbison career review, so we're picking up from where we left off. So first part we did was like the early years into 1964, and then with the 1965 into 1972, and we're going to pick up from where we left off from 1972. And so before that, the tour of 1972, Roy released another MGM album, Roy Orbison Sings, released in the May of 1972. Again, another really solid, strong album, one that I really like a lot. You've got God Love You, which was a single and a great song. If Only for a While, Rings of Gold, Help Me, Harlem Woman, Changes, It Takes All Kind of People, and Remember the Good. And It Takes All Kind of People has one of Roy's best vocal performances on record, where he even actually tries to go for a high note as well, a really high one, which is just like one of the most mind-blowing performances ever. And this album had a variety of producers. Most of Roy's MGM recordings were produced by Wesley Rose and a guy called Jim Viennu. And then Wesley Rose produced later, but then some recordings were produced by a guy called Don Gant, and then one was produced by Mike Curb, and then another was produced with Joe Melson. By this point in time, Joe Melson had returned and was writing songs again with Roy, and even produced this album. So it kind of reminds me of what would come later with one of the albums we're going to discuss later on. So yeah, a really great album, really strong, solid album. One of my favourites, Roy Orbison Sings. I have this on vinyl, and the track listing on that is rearranged for some strange reason. I don't know why that is, but it is. And also in 1972 came the album Memphis, and I really love that cover with the kind of psychedelic, colourful, very colourful looking back cover. The title track, Memphis, Tennessee, is a cover of a Chuck Berry song, but really good. I like Why a Woman Cries, Run Baby Run, I'm the Man on Susie's Mind, It Ain't No Big Thing, which Elvis did on his Love Letters from Elvis album, I think. I Fought the Law, which is a version of, I don't know who did it originally, but I can't remember, but it later became a hit for The Clash in the 1970s. And then a really good version of Danny Boy, which is quite long, but it's a good version. Again, produced by Roy Orbison and Joe Melson, but this is produced by Don Gant. Danny Boy is produced by Don Gant, and it's a good album. It's maybe not a favourite, but I do quite like it. But then we kind of come to the end of an era, and almost after this album, Dick and Roy kind of parted ways a bit. But Roy's recordings were now being distributed by MGM. But around about that time, Monument's 5-year ban on re-releasing any Orbison material came to an end, and they released this album, the all-time greatest hits of Roy Orbison, which I have on vinyl, and this is a really good representation of like the 60s hits, and I'm pretty sure most people would have this one in their collection. If you want to get any Roy Orbison greatest hits on vinyl, this would be a good one to get, because it's got pretty much the main hits on here. That's not the exact track list in order, it's just rearranged, but again, I have this on vinyl, and it was a really big seller at the time. It was a really big big album, and definitely still, I think, one that loads of people have, a very common album. It's one you see quite often in like the second-hand record shops or charity shops. It's a really good compilation album. Yeah, one that I really like. The all-time greatest hits of Roy Orbison from 1972. Now, there was one album I meant to show in part 2 or earlier, but I forgot to show it, and it's this one, the original Sound Roy Orbison compilation album, The Sun material. That was released in 1969. I probably should have showed that in part 2, but no, I didn't show it now. But back to 1972-73. Around about this time, Roy was sort of really disillusioned with MGM. MGM had now been sold to Polydor and were acquired by Polydor. And Roy was just really kind of recording some songs to really get the contract finished with. And then he released the album in September 1973 and recorded a period of 30 songs between January and June of 1973. And then this album came out in September, called Milestones, and this was only ever released in America. It's not a bad album. At first it wasn't really a good album, but then after a few listens I really liked it. I Want to Live, which was the last single that he did on MGM. There's versions of the Bee Gees' Words. California Sunshine Girl is a good song. Blue Rain Coming Down was a single and one of my favourite Roy songs. He does a good version of Neil Diamond's Sweet Caroline, and does The Morning After, which is the song from the Poseidon Adventure. He does a really good version of that. But after he completed this album and before it came out, Roy parted ways with MGM. It was really songs that he just recorded to try and fulfill his deal with the company while still trying to get out of the contract, which he eventually did in July 1973, 8 years after he signed the contract. He now left MGM and he parted ways. I think with that, he didn't really commit to a long-term contract again, but as we said, Roy by this point was still touring and still doing well with his tours, and was still looking for a new record deal. And he then, before he went on tour with Australia, he signed with Mercury Records, and the guy I think that was running it was Jerry Kennedy, who was one of the guitar players in Roy's Monument sessions. And so Roy then recorded a new album, new material, in the midst of his busy touring, and it was this album, I'm Still in Love with You, which was released in September 1975. Not a bad album, really good album, I really like it. This one has a different cover to the vinyl. Probably should have brought the vinyl up to show, but the vinyl's got like it's in the book here, which is this one. That's the original cover, which I have on vinyl. But again, solid album. I like the version of Johnny Ace's Pledging My Love, Rainbow Love, Still, Circle, Spanish Nights, It's Lonely, Sweet Mama Blue, and All I Need Is Time. Again, the track listing is rearranged. This is the 2002 CD edition, which has a completely different cover, but it's a nice picture. I like that picture with Roy in the car. So yeah, not a bad album, but they had 2 singles, neither of which charted. But it only ever came out in America, not in Britain again. So again, same global problems that are happening that plagued the MGM material. It's again really good album. I really like this one. But still a good album nonetheless. And right about this time in 1975, in the May of 1975, Roy and Barbara had another son, Alex, which left Roy with 3 sons now. He still had Wesley from his previous marriage with Claudette, who was now living with Roy's parents. And he had Roy Jr. as well, and now Alex. So in a sense, the family was really, really complete. But the album "I'm Still in Love with You" failed to give Roy the career boost that he and Barbara hoped it would. After he left MGM, which was owned by Polydor, but there was problems over there, and Mercury ended up being bought by Polygram, and that gave Roy distribution problems. So that's probably why I'm Still in Love with You did not get a British release as it should have done, perhaps. But hey ho, we are where we are. And but then in 1976, but then around about this time, Roy was starting to get a lot of kind of people were looking back at his music a bit, and sort of like Linda Ronstadt did a cover of Blue Bayou, which was a hit, and that was like, hey, people are now starting to look at this guy again. And Bruce Springsteen even mentioned Roy Orbison in the song Thunder Road, the line Roy Orbison singing for the lonely. And so there was kind of like maybe signs that a resurgence and interest was maybe happening again. And around about that time in 1976, Roy signed with his old label Monument again, or Fred Foster again, and recorded this album, which was released in November of 76, called Regeneration. This is not officially available on CD as of yet. I don't know if it will, but I made this one from my original vinyl transfer. I love that cover with the purple and red. It looks really cool. I've kind of printed out the original backing art, so I made a CD from my original vinyl transfer. But again, a great album. We have I'm a Southern Man, No Chain, Old Love Song, Born to Love Me is one of my favourites, Blues in My Mind, Something They Can't Take Away, and Belinda. A really, really strong, solid album. This doesn't have any original Roy songs though, it's other people's songs, but a great album nonetheless. But but it also kind of sounded like the classic Orbison, in a sense, even though none of the songs were original. And there was also another song that Roy had recorded during that period called Drifting Away, which was a standalone single, but it didn't make any impact in the charts. But that 1976 was actually a good year for Roy. He got 18 gold albums and 1 platinum album. And then in 1976, as we mentioned earlier, in December, Roy went to see Elvis in concert in Las Vegas at the Las Vegas Hilton, and during the show, Elvis said, "There's some fine singers in the world," and then he started talking about. He said, "There's a song, Please Release Me, Let Me Go." And no one's ever sung it like Engelbert Humperdinck. And next to him, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the finest singers of all time, Roy Orbison. And Roy Orbison was actually in the audience when Elvis said that, which was really cool to hear. And so yeah, Roy was getting a bit of reappraisal during this period. And 1977, he was touring, and he was doing a concert in San Francisco at a club called the Old Waldorf. And there was loads of celebrities in the audience. There was the Eagles, there was Bette Midler, and Boz Scaggs. So there was loads of people in the audience that were at this concert, which was amazing. And it was all these megastars would go and see Roy, which was amazing. And but around about this time, the touring was starting to take its toll a bit, and Roy started to kind of struggle a bit with his health and feel not a bit well. So he then underwent a triple bypass in 1978 in the January, but was pretty much back out on the road within a space of a few days, and was still touring. And he then appeared in a film called Living Legend and sang a lot of songs in that film, and which was done by a guy called Earl Winsby, who was making this film. And Roy did a lot of music with a new backing group he had called the Price Brothers. And I don't have that soundtrack because it's one of the rarest. Only a few thousand copies were made, so it's quite a rare one. So I don't have that on me, but I'm pretty sure I can find it and hear it on the on YouTube. Then in 1979, after Roy had left Monument again, and he was on a new label called Asylum, who were one of the big labels of the day. They had signed the Eagles and Andrew Gold and Jackson Browne, so they were a big label at the time. And Roy recorded another album and released in May of 1979 called Laminar Flow. I've got to be honest, this album I'm not particularly keen on. It's not an album that it's good, but I don't think it's as good as some of the ones I've talked about here. It's not bad. I do like Easy Way Out, Love's a Cold Wind, I Care, Move In, Poor Baby, One Spot Hot, Friday Night's a good one, Hound Dog Man, which is a real nice tribute to Elvis. Roy worked with Clayton Ivey and Terry Woodford in this album. And even it was very disco influenced, and I'm not much of a disco fan. It doesn't really. Sometimes it can work when other people try a bit of disco, and but the reviews in Rolling Stone magazine in particular were very critical, and that must have been tough for Roy. But you know, it is what it is, and it's not a bad album. I don't think it's absolutely terrible. I maybe need to give it another listen, and hopefully I'll maybe change my opinion of it. But it's good, but it's not the best Roy Orbison record. It's not like Laminar, it's not Big O or Many Moods, or it's not even Mystery Girl, as we'll talk about later on. It's good, but it's not great. But in the 1980s, so we're getting to a new decade, and by this point in time, a whole kind of new interest in Roy's music is happening. Roy was doing a lot of touring in both the US and UK, and still playing to his millions of fans. And around about that time, Roy and Emmylou Harris collaborated on a duet called That Lovin' You Feelin' Again for a film called Roadie, which starred Meatloaf, and Roy had a cameo in that film. And it's a really good song. I really like it. I don't have it on a single yet, but I'm still looking out for that one. So yeah, Roy still loved doing what he did best, which was playing music to his fans, and loads of greatest hits were coming out and still selling. So people were kind of getting interested in Roy Orbison and his music. And the 1980s, Van Halen covered Pretty Woman, and that was a big hit. and released it as a single, and that went to #1 in the mainstream rock charts and #12 on the Billboard Hot 100. So all of a sudden people were going to get interested in Roy again, and when Roy went on tour, he was then touring a lot in the States and Canada to try and get an audience out, and a lot of new audiences started to come to his shows, which was great. And during that, he recorded this concert, Roy Orbison Live at Austin City Limits, 1982. This, I think, was a television program, and this is actually a really good concert. It's mostly the hits, but there's a couple of rare ones in here, like that Lovin' You Feelin' Again and Hound Dog Man. So two of the newest songs at that point in the show, in this concert. It's a really good watch, actually, a really good concert. Again, Roy just doing what he did best. If you can get this, I really recommend you get this DVD. It's a really good concert. I've been quite fortunate with a lot of Roy's concerts. They're all available on DVD, because a lot of artists don't have that many, but I think with somebody like Roy, we're very lucky with that. Then in the 1980s, Roy wrote, in 1984, Roy was contacted by a songwriter called Will Jennings, and Will Jennings had written the song Up Where We Belong, which was a duet with Jennifer Warnes and Joe Cocker, and Roy invited him down to Nashville, and Will Jennings wrote this song, which was going to be used for a film by Will Rogue, and Will Jennings would later go on to success with people like Steve Winwood and Eric Clapton with the song Tears in Heaven, and Even My Heart Will Go On for the film Titanic. So then Will Jennings wrote this one for Roy, and it was used in the film Insignificance, and released in 1985, called Wild Hearts Run Out of Time, and it's one of my really good Roy song. I don't know the film, I haven't seen the film, I can't comment, but this is a really good song, and it was on a different label called ZTT Records, and this was released in May of 1985, and it peaked at number 76 in the UK charts. It was a bit of a disappointing number, but it was good to see that Roy was back in the charts again for the first time in 16 years since Penny Arcade in 1969. So it was good to see that was on the charts, because this was never on an actual album, I don't think, so this was just a standalone single at the time, but yeah, really, really great song, one of my favourite Roy songs. And then, a lot was happening. Roy was still doing a lot of touring and playing live to his fans around the world, both UK and in US. And around about that time, while Roy was on tour in England, he met Jeff Lynne. And Jeff Lynne was a guy who, of course, we all know from the Electric Light Orchestra, who had a great success with them. Roy had met them briefly in Nashville a few months earlier, and they sort of planned a hatch to work together. And this would be, and Jeff had loved Roy Orbison, as we stated earlier, and this would be a turning point in Roy's life. And then in 1985, in the September, Roy went back to the studio, but this time in Memphis, to do a reunion album, Sun Records reunion album, and it was this album, Class of 55, which featured Carl Perkins, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Johnny Cash as well. I've also got this one on vinyl, and this was released in 1986. I don't know too much about this album, I've only heard bits and pieces. I know Waymore's Blues, which is a good song. We Remember the King and Coming Home are good songs. So, but the rest of the album I've yet to hear, but I'll definitely need to hear it. But yeah, it was good that Roy was now back with his old Sun mates. It was like a Sun Records reunion album. And they even paid tribute to their friend Elvis with that song, We Remember the King, sung brilliant by Johnny Cash. So yeah, I really like the concept of that kind of album, really dope. And then in 1986, around that time, Roy was back into the studio again, but this time in Sherman Oaks, California, and he was re-recording his old greatest hits, which was this album in May of 1987 called In Dreams the Greatest Hits. Now the reason why Roy did this was because the original tapes that were recorded at Monument Records had gone bankrupt, so therefore this meant that the tapes for the songs were being held, and therefore these songs were not available to the public, to consumers. So Roy went into the studio and did 19 of these greatest hits songs, and I really like the re-recordings. I mean, I know they sound different, I know they're not like the originals, but I think they sound really, really good. It's like Roy's voice has just got better with age, really. And I know he's using like a modern sounds for this kind of re-recordings, but still a good job nonetheless. And around about this time, In Dreams had been used by David Lynch in the film Blue Velvet, which really helped Roy's career as well. And on this album, T-Bone Burnett and David Lynch produced this with Roy, but Roy was mostly working with a guy called Michael Utley for these re-recordings. And Michael Utley, I think, worked with Jimmy Buffett as well, so seemed like a good guy there, Michael. But around about this time, Barbara was becoming really heavily involved in her husband's career, and she was beginning to manage Roy's career and sort of book dates and whatnot. And so Barbara was really the kind of driving role with reinsurging Roy's comeback and helping him. But the re-recordings were originally issued on Silver Eagle Records, but then right about this time there was a new record label for Roy, Virgin Records, and they released this, and this was the first release on Virgin Records. And Roy really liked being with Virgin. He felt pretty good about Virgin Records. And around about that time, in 1987, January of 1987, Bruce Springsteen inducted Roy into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, saying, when I went to make Born to Run in the studio, I wanted to make a record with words like Bob Dylan that sound like Phil Spector, but most of all, I wanted to sing like Roy Orbison. Now, everybody knows that nobody sings like Roy Orbison, and that's a true point. And Roy was quite thrilled about being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and to be inducted by somebody like Bruce Springsteen, who's one of my musical heroes as well, and somebody I would like to do a career review on as well, so which we'll do at a later date. So yeah, that was definitely great, and to see. And at the end of the night, they all played Pretty Woman, which I think there's footage of that on YouTube, which you can see, which is really good. And around about that time, Roy and Bruce and Barbara all kind of got together, and they did a special live concert that was going to be for a just move me that was going to be for like a big sort of TV special. And let me move my camera a bit, the lighting's not very good. There we go. That was going to be for like a big sort of TV special thing, and that was going to be, and they did this concert at the Coconut Grove Hotel in Los Angeles. And this was the one we got, which was later released in 1989 posthumously. But Roy Orbison and Friends, A Black and White Night Live. This is one of my favourite live albums. I would say this is a great live album. Roy's voice just sounds great, and they also filmed this as well in black and white, and you can get this on the DVD here. Roy Orbison, Black and White Night. A brilliant concert. This one's the 1999. Edit version, and there's an extra song. The set list for Black and White Night, it was mostly Roy's 60s hits, but he did do a couple of new songs that I think he had either recorded or not yet recorded, but he did The Comedians, which was on which would later be re-recorded for a new album he was working on. That was written by Elvis Costello, and All I Can Do Is Dream You, which is a great up-tempo rocker song, which he does a great version of that on here as well. And I've got this on vinyl, but I'm showing this on CD. But brilliant live concert, fantastic. And also appearing on that concert were Jackson Browne, T-Bone Burnett, Elvis Costello, K.D. Lang, who later did a duet with Roy. Roy at this point had re-recorded Crying with K.D. Lang as a duet for a film, and that's a really great version. And there's many other acts in here, and you can see down the bottom there. That's the back picture. So yeah, fantastic concert, and that really almost signified Roy's career revival. And after the Black and White Night concert, during this period, Jeff Lynne was producing George Harrison, and George and Jeff began to talk, if you could have anybody in your group, who could you have? And Jeff said, I would like Roy Orbison, and George said, I'd like Bob Dylan. So that's how it kind of came about, and that was how. And then Jeff, I think, was also getting to know Tom Petty as well, who is another artist I love and I'm a big fan of as well. And this was kind of going on while Roy was making this new album, and then they later, and we'll touch upon it later on, but Jeff and Roy began to produce Roy's upcoming album, which was Mystery Girl, which would later be released in January of 1989. But then Jeff and Tom and George and Roy, and then the Wilburys, the Tom Petty, Jeff and George, went to see Roy's concert in Einaham, and they asked Roy, would you join our band? And Roy said yes to that immediately. And And so they then got together in May of 1988, recorded this album and released it, called The Traveling Wilburys Volume 1. This is a great album. I really like this album. The first track, Handled With Care, which is mostly sung by George, but there is a vocal line in from Roy. And Roy also contributes with Tom on the song Last Night. And Roy does a lot of backing vocals as well, and Roy sings in the song End of the Line. Again, I'm showing this on vinyl, but I do have this on CD with the Traveling Wilburys collection, which you get both albums in here. So yeah, brilliant album. I love this album. It's a great album. I really like the kind of concept of how these 5 musicians all kind of got together and just did this album. It sounds as if they're all having fun doing it, and they even have said that they were all having fun making this album. And yeah, brilliant album, Traveling Wilburys Volume 1. But then around about the time, Jeff was working with Roy on a new song called You Got It, which is a great song, which Tom Petty co-wrote. And also around about this time, Bono from the band U2 was even producing a song as well called She's a Mystery to Me, which Bono wrote thinking that it was another Roy Orbison track from the Blue Velvet soundtrack, which it wasn't, but it was one that Bono had written, and they recorded that song. And Roy was busy doing a lot of touring as well, but was on days off on the road he would go into the studio and record this album, record Mystery Girl, which was then released posthumously in January 1989. And this is a brilliant album, a great album. Probably my favourite Roy Orbison album, up there with In Dreams and Big O and Many Moods and those kind of albums. You got the hit You Got It, which is a great one. And you got In the Real World, which was produced by Roy, Barbara and Mike Campbell. A Love So Beautiful, produced by Jeff Lynne. California Blue, another hit, co-wrote with Jeff Lynne and Tom Petty. The Only One, which is a great one that Roy's son Wesley wrote, and Careless Heart's a great one that's produced by Mike Campbell, and also written with Diane Warren and Albert Hammond. And Albert Hammond was, of course, a very successful songwriter who wrote It Never Rains in Southern California. I must apologise, the lighting in here is awful. I should have probably put a bit more light in here, but anyways, yeah, great album. One of my favourites from Roy. And then obviously, you know, Roy was doing a lot of recording, was complete by October of 1988, and it was all mixed, and Roy was doing a lot of promotion around about Europe and interviews for the album, and there was even talk of a Traveling Wilburys tour, which didn't happen. And of course, then on December 6th, 1988, just a month before that album came out, Roy unfortunately suffered a heart attack and sadly died at the age of 52, which was a big shock to the music world and to everyone around Roy, because, you know, his career was getting back on top again, and all of a sudden he was gone, and it was just totally bolt out the blue. But as a tribute to the song The End of the Line, when they made that video a few days later, what the Traveling Wilburys did was they had a rocking chair, and they had Roy's guitar perched atop of the rocking chair as a little sort of tribute to Roy, and a photograph of Roy sitting next to it, which was quite a nice wee tribute to do. And then the album Mystery Girl came out to great success. It got good reviews, and it was getting a lot of praise in that, and which was the sad bit, was that Roy wasn't with us anymore to see that, which was a shame, but I'm sure he would have been chuffed with it nonetheless. Now, as we said earlier, Black and White Night was released posthumously in the November of 1989. Again, great live album, great one. And then in 1990, the Wilburys did reconvene for a second Wilburys album, Traveling Wilburys Volume 3, which they dedicated to Roy, and as in tribute to Roy. And then in Pretty Woman from the Black and White Night concert was issued as a single, and in 1990 it got the Grammys for Best, and in 1990 Roy was nominated for Best Vocal Performance in You Got It, and the Traveling Wilburys Volume 1 was nominated for Album of the Year as well as a Best Performance by a Duo or Group with Vocal, which the supergroup took the surprise home. But then Roy got another Grammy in 1991 when Oh Pretty Woman was released from the Black and White Night concert as a single for Best Vocal Performance in Male. So it just goes to show that even though Roy was gone, he was still getting all this praise and all this people were still remembering him. And then around about that time in 1992, around about that time in the 90s, Barbara was aware that there had been some songs that Roy had done during the sessions for Mystery Girl, but he didn't complete them or they weren't released. And so in October of 1992 came a posthumous album called King of Hearts, and it's a great album, one of my favourite Roy albums. You've got You're the One, which features a guest vocal from K.D. Lang, Heartbreak Radio, which was given to Jeff Lynne as a demo, and Jeff Lynne sort of put the finishing touches to that. We'll Take the Night's a great one, which features the late great Clarence Clemens on saxophone. Crying with K.D. Lang's a great one. After Love Is Gone, Love in Time, I Drove All Night is a great one, which that was a big hit, which Jeff Lynne had got as a demo, and Jeff Lynne finished that track as well. Wild Hearts, Run Out of Time from the Insignificance film, Coming Home from Class of 55, and the original demo of Careless Heart, which goes on a bit longer than the original, but I think I prefer that version over the Mystery Girl one, but both versions are great. King of Hearts was again a well received album, it did well, and Roy was back in the top 10 in the UK again with the I Drove All Night and the version of K.D. Lang's Crying. And even in 1989, Roy became the first musician since Elvis to have 2 US albums in the Billboard's chart simultaneously. So yeah, just goes to show that many years on, he was still getting still being remembered, as he said. I'll probably just go over some other posthumous releases quickly and just some recommendations as well. But then in 1996, we got this compilation, The Very Best of Roy Orbison. This is a Virgin compilation from 1996. They're all re-recordings, but in the live versions from Black and White Night. But it's a great single disc representation of Roy's career, and it's one that I like to listen to quite often. One that I got good memories of listening to in the car or at home or my phone or whatever music device I've had. This is one that I like to listen to quite often, and it's a great CD release. So if you want to get this would be a good one to get if you want to get into Roy. But you've got loads of options here. And the first live release was this. So we got Roy Orbison live at the BBC from 1998. This is a mix of various live performances from like BBC Radio and television. Like there's a couple from 1968 and there's one from like 1971. And it's really, really good to listen to him. We've even got a TV appearance from 1975 and 85 as well. Set list is basic hits, but there's a couple of covers like Sweet Caroline by Neil Diamond again, and a version of the Beatles' Help, which is from the Everyman John Lennon A Journey in a Life in 1985. It's only a short version, but a good one nonetheless, a good version of it nonetheless. And there's even a rare appearance of Walk On in here, which I don't think was ever really done live, but I think this was around about the time when Roy was promoting the records, because it says 1968, so yeah, good listen. It's a pirate copy, unfortunately, because it's very difficult to get hold of, and because it was only an American release, so you'd probably have to import it to get a basic version. So I've just got this version, which is okay with me. It's a good live listen, and yeah, hopefully I'll find it for a good price eventually, and I'll definitely get it if I do. But yeah, great one there, Roy Orbison live at the BBC. But I do think they should be available on YouTube if you want to listen to them. So yeah. So there's that one. And then in 1999, they started to re-release a lot of Roy's stuff, a lot of unreleased stuff again, and we got these 4 series of live albums. So the first one up is Live from Batley Variety Club. This was recorded in May 1969, and I believe, I'm right in thinking that this was one of the ones that they intended to use on the Roy Orbison Live in England album that didn't happen. So I think this was one that they did do, but a great live performance, a good set list as well, another great concert that Roy gave. The hits as well, like the stuff that would later go on the Big O album that we showed earlier in 1970, and so a really good one if you can find this one. It's a bit difficult to get hold of nowadays, but if you can get the Big O, this live album on CD, or if you could just check it out on YouTube, it's a great concert. I really recommend that one. And then we've got another one from about that same era, Roy Orbison live from Birmingham. This was in July of 1980. This one, jumping this everywhere, just give me a minute. This one was recorded in May 1969. This concert was done in July of 1980. Now this one, I believe, was done for a television special that they said they were filming during the show, but I don't think I've seen any footage of that. But great concert nonetheless, and the set list is great as well. I like these kind of colour art designs that they all have. They have like a picture, black and white picture of Roy, but they've all got these sort of colours to go along with it as well. So yeah, This is one I again recommend. You can probably get it on YouTube as well, because these CDs are quite difficult to get hold of now, but if you can find them for a cheap price, yeah, pick them up. But if you can find them on YouTube, I sure give them a listen. This is another great solid concert, great performance from Roy in July of 1918. It was at the Jefferson Civic Center in Birmingham, Alabama. And the other one that was this one, live from the Fiesta Club. This is in March of 1980 in Stockton, England. The quality of the first two is actually really good. This one's not in as brilliant quality. This is a pair of many releases that I've got, but this is the kind of official version. If you want to get a version of this concert, the official one would probably be the one to go for. But sound quality wise, not brilliant, but because I think it was recorded by a member of the fan club, as it says in the liner notes in here. But great, good, still another great, good performance that Roy gives, and great one there. We've got Live from Queen's Theatre, this in Horton Church. This is from October 1975 on Roy Jr.'s 5th birthday. So brilliant, brilliant. Again, another really good concert, pretty good concert. This was like a special fan club show that Roy gave to the members of the Roy Orbison fan club around about his UK tour of 1975. So brilliant, brilliant live album. Good live album. And then in 1999, Black and White Night was turn the light on, remixed and remastered, and it got a completely different altered track listing. And there was an extra track on here called Claudette, which didn't make the album or television special originally. I think it was to coincide with the release of the DVD. If you can find either, if you can find the DVD or the album, I definitely get it. Both great there. And this sounds really good. Sound quality in this one is really good. They've kind of brought it up a bit, because it was sounded kind of buried a bit on the original release, but still good job at the mixing. Then in 2001, Virgin issued this compilation called Love Songs. This has a lot of the stuff on MGM that wasn't available. This has a lot of the, it's still got the 80s re-recordings of the hits, but it has some of the MGM stuff that wasn't available anywhere else at the time. So it's good that we got a representation of the MGM period. So this is probably a good one to get, because it has a lot of the MGM stuff, but the stuff for the MGM is now available to get hold of now globally in one piece, but still good to have. And this is a really good compilation album, one that again I like to listen to quite often. I quite like that cover as well. It's really nice. I'm probably just going to go over these quite quickly, because you know we've gone on a lot. Then in 2002, Crimson Records put out this one called Big Hits from the Big O, and this is how I first heard Roy Orbison, was this album. And this has a lot of the hits and the MGM stuff, and even an unreleased track at the time called Say No More, which is a really good song, and I like that one. If you want to get this one, this is a good one to get hold of, even though it's got the 80s re-recordings, but it has the MGM material as well, which is good to see, and it's one that I like to listen to a lot. This is one I've got special value, special sentiments for, you know, one that I often come back to and I still enjoy listening to every time. And then in 2004, Orbison Records and Virgin Records got together and put out this set, the Platinum Collection. Again, it has similar versions to Love Songs, re-recordings, MGM stuff, and some other stuff that's not available anywhere else. So if you can find this for a good price, again, get it. But again, we have other albums since, but I kind of wanted to show it as a sort of guide to get into Roy Orbison. So this is a good one to get hold of as well. And it's got quite a nice cover to it as well. That was released in 2004. And then in 2006, in the year that would have been Roy's 70th birthday, these two compilations come out. We've got the very best of Roy Orbison and the Essential Roy Orbison, both officially put out by Sony and Orbison Records. This was quite hard to get. I've had to get another lid to replace this, but this is the Essential Roy Orbison, which pretty much, if you want to get a Roy Orbison collection on CD, this would probably be a good one to get, because it pretty much covers a lot of ground on here, the hits and some of the lesser known stuff. So this would be one to get if you want to get into Roy Orbison. This would be a good one for you. And this is a very special one, released later in 2006. This was my first Roy Orbison CD I got it for Christmas in 2009, so yeah, it's a really, really special album for me, this one. Again, a great one. Again, this is one I've been listening to quite a bit recently. And then in 2008, the Orbison Estate put out this big box set, Roy Orbison's Soul of Rock and Roll. And this has 4 CD set. It's got a wide kind of mix of a lot of
unreleased stuff, previously released stuff, live stuff, mix of everything. It's even got some early 50s recordings from like the Teen Kings and the Wink Westerners. And it's even got a 1956 guitar pool medley, which has Roy doing some Elvis songs like I Want You, I Need You, I Love You, I Was the One, That's Alright, Mary Lou, I'm not sure if that was Elvis, but You're My Baby, which is one of his own ones. A lot of demo recordings as well, like a song called Precious, which is a nice one from like 68 or 69. And it has the live versions from Black and White Night, and even Life Fades Away from the film Less Than Zero. You Make Me Feel Like Crying, which is a good song that appeared on a couple of compilations. And even It's Over from the last live concert Roy Orbison gave 2 nights before he died on December 4th, 1988 at the Front Row Theatre in Cleveland, Ohio. So if you can try and find this box, it's a good one to get. I think it's out of print now, but a bit expensive, but you should be able to get it on Spotify and internet streaming devices and stuff like that. And then 2011 they put out this Roy Orbison, the original Monument Singles Collection 1960 to 64. This is a great one because this has all the original mono mixes of the Monument singles, both the A-sides and the B-sides, which is great to see. A lot of these songs are great, and it has a DVD of the Monument concert, which is the one from Holland that we spoke about earlier. So if you want to get this, definitely pick this one up because it's a good one to get hold of, all the Monument singles, if you can find them for a cheap price. Then in 2010 or 2013, when this originally came out, but they put out a 25th anniversary edition of Roy Orbison, The Last Concert. This is the live performance from the Front Row Theatre in Cleveland in December of 1988, 2 nights before Roy died on the 4th of December. The CD, it comes with a CD, and it comes with a bonus DVD of like Roy's last interview and some live performances from the Redessa Country Club in 1981 and Rockefeller Hall in Houston 1986. So you pretty much get a lot in here, and it's quite a good release. And the sound quality in this one's actually really good. It's a good concert. Roy gives a really good concert again, just mostly the hits, but still great live performance. And little were we to know what was to happen 2 days later, but still a great concert. Then in 2015, at long last, and then but before that, I'm jumping the gun. In 2014, they re-released Mystery Girl as a deluxe edition, and they put out the original album, but they also put out some bonus tracks like studio demos, and even a new song was on here called The Way Is Love, which was one that Roy's son and John Carter Cash, Johnny Cash's son, did from a cassette demo that Roy had done in the 80s. They took Roy's voice out and they put their own instruments to it, which is kind of similar to what they did with the Beatles, Free as a Bird and Real Love, and Now and Then just recently. And it's even got a couple of work tape demos of Windsurfer and a really nice ballad called You Are My Love, which is, even though it's in low quality, it's really interesting to hear. And some studio demos of the tracks. So I really like the version of In the Real World on here. So even comes with a bonus DVD with like music videos and the documentary of the making of Mystery Girl. So that's a great watch, that Mystery Girl Unraveled, a great one to get hold of, that one. And then, as I was saying, 2015, the Mystery Girl, the MGM catalogue was finally available again on a global basis. They'd been like that way a few years earlier, in 2004, but in 2015 it was all put together in this nice big box set, the MGM years, and a little bonus album called MGM B-sides and singles, which was only available in the box set. It wasn't available anywhere else, but good to see it, these tracks being available again, and there's some really good ones on here, a lot of strong performance songs on here that don't really get talked about much elsewhere or hadn't been before. So it was nice that all this was together in one place. Again, I have this one on vinyl, that's a great one. And also in 2015 they went into the vaults and they pulled out a bunch of stuff that Roy had recorded in the 60s at MGM but never released it, and they made this album One of the Lonely Ones, which Roy had recorded after the tragedies of the house fire, and there was a lot of these songs that really sort of expressed the emotion that he was going through at the time. It wasn't released for one reason or another, I think because of scheduling conflictations, because Many Moods was supposed to be out when the fire happened and that was pushed, and this album I think was a lot of these songs were intended for an album and then the album never happened, but it wouldn't be until 2015 and
I love this album. This is a brilliant album. I really like it a lot. Again, I have it on vinyl, but I've got it on CD as well, which I want to show. But a brilliant album, I think, and I really remember really liking this one at the time, and I think I still like it now. Even though I haven't heard it for that long, I'll probably still enjoy it. But brilliant album, nonetheless. Right, we're getting to the end now. I'm kind of going over some things a bit quick because I hope to do a full video on some of these things I've just talked about. But then we got this compilation, the Ultimate Collection in 2016. This, I would say, is the best one to get because this has all of Roy's hits from the 60s and even some from the 80s and even a couple of Travel Mulberry's tracks as well. So this would be the one I would recommend you get if you're going to get Roy Orbison's greatest hits. This is probably a good one to get. And then Black and White Night was re-released at the 30th anniversary in 2017, where we got the DVD and audio, and it was the actual set that it was, and even a secret post show where they did some of the songs a second time, which I didn't realise that until this release. And again, this is a great concert. It's even good to see this done differently, and even got alternate camera angles from the concert as well, which is really great. So yeah, probably get that one as well. This might be the best one to get because it's got like everything in the show. Then in 2017, much like what they've done with Elvis, Roy's estate teamed up with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, and this came out, A Love So Beautiful, with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. This is a brilliant album. I really like this kind of concept. I like the ones they've done with Elvis, and this was one I was really excited about when I heard it was coming out. I really loved hearing like the way these songs were done. There's a lot of, this was mostly like the hits album. This was like really big in the charts, and they even did a hologram tour of Roy, which I went to see at the Armadillo in Glasgow, which is there, as you can see, which is great. And yeah, and I've also got it in vinyl as well, and it's a great release. Brilliant album, A Love So Beautiful, Roy Orbison with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. And then a year later in 2018, and this is the most recent release we've had to this point, this takes us up to the present day, Unchained Melodies, Roy Orbison with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. Again, this got to the UK top 10 charts, and this has a lot of the lesser known obscure stuff, but still some of the hits like Blue Bayou, Falling, Too Soon to Know, but it's also got some great ones like Careless Heart, California Blue, which wasn't on the last album, and even Danny Boy, which is an MGM track, and The Great Pretender from the Monument years. So yeah, really brilliant album. And these have a couple of duets. So the first one has I Drove All Night with a duo called Ward Thomas, a country duo of twin sisters. And this one, Heartbreak Radio's got the duet with Cam. Don't know who they are, but... So we've made it to the end of our Roy Orbison career review, and I hope you've enjoyed this video because I know I do warble on too long, and I know this was quite a long one, but I wanted to show a lot on Roy and just kind of talk about his career. But I think that one way to sum up Roy's legacy was that he was such a unique artist, and he was a unique singer and unique songwriter. There wasn't that many people that wrote the way he did before he came along, and there wasn't that many people that sang the way he did as well. He was totally unique in his own way. You know, even Elvis loved Roy, as I said, and loads of people were fans of Roy, as I've talked upon. And towards the end of his life, he was asked how he would like to be remembered, and he gave the simple answer of, I would just like to be remembered. And it's amazing to think that 35 years on, Roy Orbison has still been remembered, and there's always like, his songs get used in films quite often, and you know, they still make television programs about him, and documentaries about him, and however, there's been talk of a film, a biopic film for years, but that hasn't yet happened, and I would really love to see one, and I hope that with that film, maybe people will gain another interest in Roy. Who knows, but if you want to know about Roy and his story, this is a good DVD to probably get hold of. In Dreams, the documentary. This is a brilliant documentary DVD, which, if you can get this is one I would recommend you get. And there's also this great book, which I've been reading from, The Authorised Roy Orbison. This was something that his estate put out a few years ago. It might still be available, I don't know, but it's a great read nonetheless. If you can get it, definitely get it, because it's got loads of rare and unseen pictures, and from like the time, and so yeah, a great book nonetheless. So that's it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it, because I know I do go on too often, which I've probably why I've split it into 3 parts. I wasn't sure about whether stopping at the end, but I did eventually. But hope you've all enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe. If you want to see me do more of these, do leave a comment below in the description, and hopefully the next video will be a lot shorter. I'll tell you that. But anyways, hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you for the next video.